Welcome to Portals of Perception and to Current Openings. What the world doesn't quite get yet. A conversation where David Price Francis and I explore the current of this moment to discover what is opening. Today we are inquiring into the why of development as we embark on Current Openings number 12, the Human Development Challenge, Why Develop Yourself? So we are getting into the crux of the matter. David is a spiritual teacher and a transformation expert helping individuals and groups improve the quality of their lives and relationships. David, it's good to see you again.
You too, Aviv. I'm glad we're entering into the crux of the matter in number 12. It's good. Yeah.
And on Current Openings 11, we focused on the application conundrum. Anything that's live for you by way of reflection?
I think in reflection on Current Openings 11, it's the feature of building a practice. That is that we can have the learning of something, but if we actually want to bring it into ourselves at cellular level and really have it part of our constitution, then it's a matter of daily practice. However simple that practice is, it doesn't have to be too complex, but that we do something every day in the direction of how we want to apply ourselves. And I'm sure what we're applying ourselves into, we'll be looking into today, because there's a natural bridge between application and development.
Yes, and a core premise we focused on in this episode, Current Openings 11, was the idea that the universe itself is a learning system. It learns and then it applies its learning. And inside this idea of the universe as a learning application system, we reflected on the idea of the harvesting principle, which we proposed was the idea that anything the universe has learned becomes readily available anywhere, because the universe runs what we describe as an open source operating system. And we actually proposed an interesting contemplative idea there, which was that this is a way for the universe to be both economic and efficient and generous and compassionate. And the contemplation that it summoned us to was, well, what about us? And could it be that when we find a way to integrate efficiency and economy with generosity and compassion, we become universal in ourselves? We suggested that was something we will thread back to. And we also looked at the idea of the harvesting principle in terms of capacities and know-how that was established in earlier stages of the appearance and the evolution of life. They become scaffolds for later stages and later evolution, and so therefore core patterns that express natural laws, such as the idea that every living system has its inhale and exhale. And what we, I believe, proposed there is really that when we describe those core patterns, we also call the natural laws of the universe, we are describing permanent line values that appear throughout the universe. So there is a permanent line value that's expressed through the permission and the idea of inhaling. The universe loves that all organic living systems, they have the capacity to take in, to internalize, to integrate, to build a mechanism of distilling from the ecosystem. And then the universe loves the idea that alongside with this cohesion and integration facility in the mechanism of life, that there is a release and the letting go in the exhale that makes space for the next new cycle. So what we were describing there was that these were not just mechanical processes that life found to be efficient, but rather permanent lines of value that continue to emerge and evolve and express themselves all the way, not just obviously in the digestive system and the respiratory system and so on, because what we are saying, those core fractals, the blueprints of the operating system of life will manifest in each of these levels, but that these represent platforms for whatever will emerge later, and therefore we left this dual awareness. One, that represent those core patterns, they represent tremendous care. So there is care in the universe, there is care in life, there is supreme care and love about the fact of life that would orchestrate the fact that we can take in from the environment and that we then get the permission to release and let go. That was one awareness. And the other awareness, which you kept bringing us back to, in recognizing that the human has these two systems, the automated system. And what we're seeing is the automated system is so evolved and so sophisticated to express this supreme care. And the question we were asking, are we in the conscious, supposedly higher, indeed higher, often in terms of versatility and permission and choice, and the conscious realm of our life, are we as effective and as efficient and as smart as the universe already is? In other words, do we know to apply our learning? And this essentially led us to the conundrum of application. And what we suggested, I believe, that the core idea that we looked at was that anytime we apply ourselves by way of applying our head, by way of thinking about a problem, apply our heart, energy and passion and care to those things that matter for us, apply our hands by simply impacting the environment around us anywhere we choose to consciously direct our attention in any of those realms. What do we do when we say we apply ourselves? We convert energy into some, whatever energy, mental energy, emotional energy, physical, biological energy, spiritual energy. We convert those potentialities to create some kind of an impact, some kind of result in our interior worlds and in our exterior worlds around us. So I believe what we invited in terms of contemplation was the idea that the application conundrum is about how do we use the gift of life and the power of life to create results. Given that, as we said, the universe is so efficient in its first self nature, but as we evolve to our higher expressions of the self, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth selves, which is something that we discuss on another Portals conversation, do we remember that this is really one of the tests in showing up for the planetary life? We show up for the theater that enables us to translate and convert potential into actuality, such that we shape the universe while being shaped by the universe all at the same time. That's for me the distillation of the application conundrum.
Well, I think to pick up on one, to help support something that you said there, which is about the love of the universe, and how to look at that in a way that to me is infallible. And that is that we can see the love of the universe in what the universe supports. And if we bring that to planetary level, so it's because it's easier to see in our own planet, because this is where we are, this is our home planet, that the planet supports actively the forms of life, organic life that exist on the planet right now. And a really interesting feature there, science tells us that about 93 to 97% of what has been on the planet, the different species of organic life, are already extinct. So the planet's love moves on according to what she supports. So we can see that once upon a time, the planet loved dinosaurs. And there's a big difference between love and loved. You just add that D, it makes a big difference. So you say to someone, I love you, and it's, you say, I loved you, and they're like, huh, what? It's a big thing, because one is alive, living action in the moment, and the other one is capped off, it's over. So the planet supports, and we could say that's an active love. And love turns up as an active property. So if love is not, and we take it to the human realm, we can see what someone loves by what they support in the similar fashion, like taking that idea that you just said, going from the planetary realm to the human realm, that love is an active property. I've met this very often in my work with couples. Like, does he or she really mean what they say when they say, I love you? And my answer is always, well, look at the actions. What are the actions saying? Where's the consideration? Where's the support? Because that's where you'll find it. The word itself can be empty or it can be full. It depends upon the living energy that actually follows through. So the evidence that the universe loves, whoever's watching this recording right now can say directly, the universe loves you. And I can prove it because your heart is beating, and because your brain is working, and because your eyes are seeing and your ears are hearing. None of that would be possible if the universe didn't love you and support you every single moment, including this moment now. So that would be the kind of the backup, the substantia to that love of the universe. We experience it moment by moment, and we can become, unfortunately, familiar with it and take it for granted. But that heartbeat signal, that has to come in every now, like going now, 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 now. If it stops, we're gone. So that is active love and support.
And this potent realization about love and support leads us directly to today's focus on the Human Development Challenge and why develop yourself. One of the points you made earlier on an earlier current openings was this idea that there is no void. So if you do not assemble yourself to determine your direction and what is important for you and what you're about, well, everything else around you will determine for you what you're about by default. So that's an easy entry to the idea of why develop yourself. And it lives very close to what you just offered there in terms of how the substantia of coming to know that the universe supports you, because one of the ways we come to know about what we care about is what we choose to develop, what we choose to bring focus to. So I have an idea for today that we should run an experiment that we've never done on current openings, and that we should employ a tool that I call loom work. And the idea of loom work is that because what we are exploring is, first of all, not one-dimensional, and second of all, not linear or chronological. Loom work is a way to facilitate the concurrency of, in today's case, 5 parallel conversations, 5 parallel lanes of looking at the consideration of why develop yourself. Because I'd like to propose that we look at this inquiry through the personal lens, through the planetary lens, through the human as a species lens, through the cosmic lens, and through the future lens. And that we look and we build the scaffolds one at a time. And the idea of me bringing up a slide in a minute is to simply enable ourselves and the people coming along for the ride with us to hold the structure of the conversation. And there are 2 more important nuances about this, which is anything we say, David, is never an end-stop destination. This entire current openings is about the current that's moving and about what is opening. And so the way we use ourselves and the way we employ the nature of the dialogue is more by with the intention of opening possibilities and potentialities rather than framing anything that is a final definitive truth. I would say we are more interested in going on a journey and marking some trail markers along the journey such that each and anyone coming along for the ride with us, we in essence put tools in their hands, scaffolds in their contemplative structure to build their inquiry. And there is both an attitudinal choice in this, which has about it humility and appreciation that it needs, while we're looking at something that we sometimes will claim has the authenticity of a natural law and is not changed by opinion, that within that there is endless possibilities and range of experience to internalize that, to recognize that, and there is inside it even the awareness that what this time is about human beings engaging with these kind of inquiries and not necessarily looking for final destination end stops, but rather being in the living inquiry, that is actually where, and I'm beginning to hint to the cosmic answer, the universe, as the universe loves us, a way for us to love the universe in return is to be in the very inquiry of how the universe, how life emerges at this time to expand consciousness and possibility and the idea of the evolutionary process. So that's me already seeding the kind of the end of the fifth lane or the fourth lane. So before I bring the slide and begin to lay the scaffolds, anything you'd want to play jazz with in terms of what I just offered there as a starter?
Well, there's much, but I have the sense if I go there, I'll start pulling in number 3 or 4 or 2. So I think we should go with the slides and let's begin it. Let's try the experiment.
Let's do the experiment. So here we go. Okay, so Human Development Challenge.
Yeah.
And we are today inquiring about why develop yourself. And I'm proposing that the easiest place to begin, not necessarily always the best place to begin, but on this one, the easiest place to begin is to bring the personal perspective, such that we integrate ourselves to the story, such that it's not some academic conceptual framing that is not tethered to the living of life. And so when I said, well, where will we begin with the personal perspective in terms of why develop yourself? Well, I immediately thought, let's begin with having 3 starter entry points. And I thought, what will be the 3 places to begin? And they immediately suggested themselves as the past, the present, and the future. And I said, well, one of the ways to answer in the personal perspective why develop yourself in the past sense is to harvest the best of what we have experienced and release the rest, so we don't have to carry forward what is no longer functional or useful. That's one way to answer why develop yourself with the perspective of my past experience. So then I said, well, so what's the future perspective? The future perspective is I want to develop myself such that I am the best tool I can be to unlock and to embrace the highest possibilities, the highest opportunities. So that's the past and the future. And the present was, well, to unlock the potential of this moment right here, right now. So that's where I'd offer, again, just as a starter, scaffolds to lay the foundation of how to enter the contemplation of why develop yourself through the personal lens, the personal perspective. Where would you take this? How would you want to play jazz with that?
Well, I'll come adjacent in that not alternative, but weaving in and out of that. I'm caught with the feature of application. So the application conundrum. And we could almost say, why apply yourself? So there's why develop yourself. And the background feature from a personal perspective is that whatever we do, we are causing some kind of development in ourselves. And so we have indeed, as you said, there's development past, there's development future, but the key is always development in the present. So our keyway, our entryway is in the now. It's like we can only know things in the now. And that's where it's very interesting that word is K, now. We're always knowing things in the present. We can accumulate what we call knowledge, which is like sedimentation from old knowings, but in the moment we get to know things in the present moment. And so in that process of development, there's 8 billion personal perspectives on the planet right now. So every person has got their personal perspective. And there are certain laws that apply, and this will, I'm sure, will take us into other perspectives as we go, but we are designed to develop. Like just a brief moment on our previous planetary programs where we find a squirrel, a bird, a cat, a dog, their development is already complete or capped. They're fully integral being what they are. But the 8 billion human beings, each of us is capable of a personal perspective, which means there's that second opportunity to decide how we're going to apply ourselves, what we're going to think about, how we're going to use the energies, as you said, of our head, our heart, our hand. How are we going to deliberately apply ourselves? And if we choose to do, let's say, an extreme example, if we choose to do nothing, we would develop the ability to do nothing. It's amazing. Everybody has to develop something. And it can be of, it then has different orders of something. But even if we started with a person who says, well, I'm just going to sit on my couch and that's it. That's what I'm going to do. They will develop the ability to sit stationary on their couch. And that would be their unique contribution. You could say it's a minimal contribution. It's going to depend what they're thinking about while they're there. But that would be their contribution. So we are designed to develop. So why not take a hand and develop what you would choose to develop from a personal perspective, rather than what everything else would turn you out to be if you don't take a hand in the matter. In other words, everybody's developing, but are they choosing the way of that development, or are they going to turn out to be the way that life turns them out to be?
So you are truly describing that the phenomena of life itself, the flow of life, has about it design to develop, design for development. And
Yes.
and you've spoken there about the planetary program. So it's very natural to then bring the planetary perspective here. And I've deliberately chosen to bring the planetary perspective a second, and then come to the human as a species perspective third. And when I ask myself, well, what will be the 3 starters, 3 places to begin to enter the contemplation of why develop? So again, why develop yourself? Typically, if you'll ask the question, unless you invite a person to embrace a broader perspective, they will answer it from themselves. So that's the first place we begin. Answer for yourself why you'd want to develop. And what you just said is, look, even if you didn't answer anything, you will be developing into something. So why not actually shape and determine the direction by what you care about, by what is important for you. Now we are inviting that we embrace the planetary perspective. What would be a way to contemplate and consider why develop yourself not through your eyes, not through your lens, but through the planetary lens, as though the planet has its own intelligence and its own life inside this contemplation. And again, I look to find the easiest 3 starting points, and they presented themselves in the idea of what would you want to reduce or even eliminate? What would you want to increase and augment? What would you want to reciprocate? Because, again, through the planetary perspective, you may say, I want to reduce toxicity and ecological degradation. And development may have something to do with that. Is it possible, could it be that by the way you treat your life and the way you develop yourself, what you sensitize yourself to, you become a better, more effective, discerning tool in all aspects of the ecology, not just in the obvious that we look at in the physical and biological and environmental sense, but in all aspects of the ecology, including the ecology of your thoughts and your energy. So this idea of reducing toxicity and ecological degradation, and how about embracing the consideration that development is the path where we support and increase ecological wellness and ecological wholeness. And that when we do so, we truly reciprocate and engage and support all living beings. So in other words, the invitation in the planetary perspective is, can we consider ourselves part of the industry, the planetary industry of constructive, life-supporting kind of process. Whereas, as you reflected on an earlier call, current openings, when we look today at the world, the most profitable industries, as you noted, were the weaponry, the armory first, and the pharmaceuticals. So apparently, we've developed a system whereby destroying life and somewhat serving all that's ill and is diseased, that those became the profitable pursuits. And of course, the more profitable they are and the more we're driven by profit, the more we get locked and captured into those feedback loops and what they support. What we are suggesting, the planetary perspective will be, well, what would be a way to develop yourself such that you become a reciprocal, supportive life to all that's alive around you? How would you play with those considerations?
That's great. I would again make another approach in respect of what is it the planet, from the planetary perspective, what does the planet want from the human? What planetary purpose does a human fulfill? It's easy to see with a daffodil, with a cat, with a squirrel, with a dog. They're processing a particular energy, and the planet draws that energy from that part of organic life. And the way I view it is that's how the planet, part of how the planet feeds from universal energy, even by the direct process of sunlight through the organic life processing the sunlight and then producing material which goes into the planet. And she even materially grows her soil. This would be the planetary program functioning at, you could say, unconscious level. But then comes the human, and we're able to choose what it is that we process. I'm going to use that word because it strikes me as such as an important one. We looked at it in an earlier current openings, and we process physical food, we process liquid food, we process air, we process light, and we process what I call the quintessence, which is energetics, by what we think about and how we use our emotion. So the way I view human life, and a very interesting quotation actually I came upon quite a while ago, and it was a quotation from the teacher Jesus the Christ. I call him JC to avoid everything that's been put with him. But what he said was, I see people as walking trees. And I thought, what's a very curious thing to say. I see people as walking trees. Well, that would mean that every human is drawing in certain kinds of energy, processing that energy and releasing it into the planet. So could it be that we're designed to develop? And if we're processing energies such as greed and hatred, that would be the toxicity and ecological degradation box that you have in your loom there, that would actually be energetically a very low level of fuel that will be going into the planetary atmosphere. That if we're going into the energy of reciprocating and supporting, we will actually have energies such as gratitude, respect, love. We're going to have hope, faith. These are higher energies that when we process these higher energies, we get the idea of illumination around a person. We get the idea of a higher energy field around a person. And that means there's a higher energy processing through them in that box you called increase. In the now, we're always processing in the present. Even if we're thinking about the past, we're in the present thinking about the past. If we're thinking about the future, we're in the present thinking about the future. So we're always processing in the now. And if we're processing high level energy, vibrational frequency, that's what we're bringing through us. And I think from a planetary perspective, that would actually be, it's an odd thing to say, but that would be better food for the planet than if we're processing lower level, more toxic frequencies. So it's quite the statement, but that's how I would, from a planetary perspective, the human offers the planet energies that the planet cannot get without the human. Otherwise, she wouldn't keep supporting the human, I believe.
So there are some big ideas in your framing there. Let me try and rethread through some of what you are saying. Initially, you said you want to know that the universe and the planet love you and support you. Guess what? You're alive. You are being. This is your demonstration. Now you're saying. Now you added another idea to this. You're saying, okay, if you come along for the ride, and you agree to entertain the idea that this universe and this planet is not just a mechanical thing as we have been indoctrinated into in the late 19th century, early 20th century, to view the world as a big machine. This was part of the indoctrination of the Industrial Revolution. If you come along with this idea that the universe and this planet, these are conscious in their own way processes and intelligences, and so therefore for the planet to support and love you, she has a functional purpose in having an oak tree, in having a dolphin, in having a squirrel, in having a human. And those different forms of life, they, as you say, process and aggregate certain energetic natures that she cannot, without those forms of life, aggregate to herself, but can through the expression and the living of these different forms of life. And if you now add to that what you said earlier about the dinosaurs are no longer being loved, so therefore they are no longer with us, you can begin to enter an interesting contemplation where you say, well, according to what the planet needs through to her own development and evolution, will she support in terms of the forms of life that she will give rise to and support and enable. And the contemplation we are exploring here is, well, why develop yourself? Could we partner with the planet to facilitate the mutual reciprocal development and evolution of this sacred ecology we call Earth and our own potential as humans in terms of where our species is heading? Because we propose that we have an even broader than planetary perspective where we can think about the human as a universal being. So this is how I would bridge from what you said to the human perspective. And the starter that I created here, similarly, I said, well, what is it in terms of, if I view my development as an easement, as a facility for the species? In other words, when I'm able to do something in myself, when I'm able, as you said, shift from hatred to support and compassion and love, I make more of that permission and encourage more of that in the world. In other words, the Gandhi message, if you want to bring about a change in the world, well, begin with yourself, become the change you want to see in the world. So can I find a way to release my limiting fixings and traumas and shadow? Because when I do, I become a pathfinder, not only for my life, but for the human perspective, because more of us can move in that direction. In a similar way, when I'm able to foster healing, well-being, enhancement, and connection to the whole, the connection to the whole is already there, but bringing that connection into consciousness and practicing the fuller, greater realization of that connection, then would that be a way to encourage it into the broader human perspective? And then thirdly, is there a way for us, for each one of us, to consider that when you develop yourself, you become part of the upgrading evolutionary endeavor to open new permissions, to open new possibilities when and where you engage with your own life through this lens in this time when we are suggesting that the human as a species, we are knocking at the threshold, we are right at the portal of new evolutionary possibility, which is part of why we are engaging in this exploration we call current opening. So that's a bit of a bridging there from the planetary to the human, with already a bit of a suggestion to the universal and the cosmic that will come next. How would you play, and what would that lead you in your own deliberation and exploration?
Well, I think this is it's very constructive, looking at one level layered upon the next. And I'm going back to the originating question, why develop yourself? And then again, going through the three levels. At a personal level, why develop yourself? Well, to help yourself. And we have to open more about what that means, but it's there in those three boxes that you put there. But to help yourself in a particular way, which will then need to open up, I think, in future current openings. Because what does it mean to help yourself? You know, it's one thing to be at a buffet and say, help yourself. Well, that's a very simple thing to do. But, to help yourself be what? To help yourself in what way? To be discovered. The second one, this is very interesting because it says, well, to help the planet. From a planetary perspective, why develop yourself? You have people walking along with placards, save the whales, and it's admirable, or save the dolphins, or in Florida, look after the manatees. And that's the instinct that wants to help the planet. and that's in an obvious way. But what's the bigger picture of how we can help the planet? And I believe it comes to what we process, how we think, how we use our emotion, how we use our life, how we apply ourselves. But why develop yourself at planetary level? To help the planet. And why develop yourself from a human perspective? Well, to help the human race, to help the human situation, to help, let's say, raise the level of vibration of the human race. And you may, from a personal perspective, be like, well, how can I do that? I'm 1 out of 8 billion. But if anybody's ever looked at homeopathy, you'll know that one little drop of something going into a large solution does make a difference to the frequency of that solution. So I'm kind of tracking that why develop yourself through those three, and seeing that, well, develop yourself to help the planet, develop yourself to help the human, and develop yourself to help yourself. So then we'll see what the cosmic perspective.
Yeah, and then build on that and develop the cosmic perspective, because we are, by being humans, by becoming humans, we are planetary and universal / cosmic all at the same time, in the idea that the body is planetary, but the consciousness and the higher potential is greater and is universal. And so I suggested that indeed a place to begin is why develop yourself at the cosmic level through the cosmic, because the universe looks at this planet and it sees that this is a place where still the conductivity is rather low. Everything is connected to everything else, but the consciousness of human life doesn't yet see that everything in its current state, doesn't yet see that everything is connected to everything else. So to the degree that I can, through development, increase the inner conductivity, by which we mean perceiving and realizing how everything is connected to everything else and living into that actuality. When we increase that perception, we increase the conductivity in this realm and thereby enable more of the cosmos to draw near through our perception and our expression. And then indeed, when we do so, we are able to connect to not just planetary intelligence, but to cosmic intelligence, new and greater intelligence that would want to permeate and see the human realm. Because again, if you embrace this idea of the inhale and exhale, well, the universe wants if you embrace the concept from it, think of the universe, the cosmos, as a person. It wants to know all that's happening in its theater, and it wants to liberate it and gather the fruits and the wisdom of the experiment and produce these cycles. And so how would it do that? Well, if we are part of the larger neural system of the cosmos, and we become those neural ends with increasing conductivity and are able to connect to greater intelligence, and therefore are able to bring to life goodness and truth and beauty, and in all the many forms and expressions, then we become, in that sense, through our development, universal and cosmic agents into the planetary theater and the human theater, and that's a reason to enter the prospects of development.
Very nice. Well, I came at it from personal to cosmic. Let's go back the other way.
Yes.
And think, well, we are here to help the cosmos. I'm on this theme of helping. Now that might sound really sort of cheeky, but why else are we here? We're here to help the cosmos, therefore to bring in, as you said, new and greater intelligence, bring to life goodness, truth, and beauty, enable higher conductivity and increasing perception. So we're like potentially a cosmic agent at planetary level. So we can bring more of the cosmos in to the planet through that human perspective. Look at the fact right now that we're putting out there, we're reaching into space, we're reaching beyond the planet. in terms of our science, our technology, the endeavor to understand more about the cosmos is very apparent in our human design and purpose. We sort of have this quest to research, to know, to find out. We're reaching into the cosmos. We got the idea of going to Mars and going to the moon and sending rockets way off into space to feed back information. So, but coming back through the system, then if we're seeking to be a cosmic agent on the planet in that sense, that would then be helping the human as a whole come into greater awareness of our position in the universe and our purpose in the universe. We then bring that human perspective into the planet, which helps the planet in respect of a higher energy, a higher cosmic energy, higher cosmic process, which the human is able to connect to. And maybe the planet can't connect to direct. So we are her agency, part of her organic life. We're a collection agency. And then at personal perspective, that gives us that fulfillment, that sense of meaning, of purpose, of knowing why we're here. We're not just here to deal with economics and kind of get a job and work in whatever, work in the factory or work in the accounting office, or we're no longer driven financially as a primary focus. We have a new prime focus, which is we're seeking to be an agency for cosmic change, an evolutionary signal, higher intelligence inside the human race. So seeking to lift up the human condition to whatever way we can, helping the planet in the process by bringing in goodness, truth, beauty, higher energetic frequency, and in so doing, finding personal prioritization. Someone says, well, what's your purpose? The answer might be, well, I'm here to help raise the level of vibration of the human race by connecting to higher cosmic energy as much as I can, and I'm developing myself as far as I can to be able to do that. That's, oh, and by the way, I'm doing this, and this job to cover the economics because I'm not paid for being a cosmic agency right now.
Not yet. not yet. There isn't yet an economic model to support it, but there may be. Now, the interesting and beautiful thing in the way you look at it from the bottom up and from the top down is that, so when you embrace the perspective that you can serve and become a universal, a cosmic agent that serves by way of a midwifery function to new kind of ways of being and seeing and collaborating and bringing to life those new ways of human life. When you do so, you are serving the cosmic perspective, and you're also serving yourself in a whole new way, because you are, by bringing those possibilities to life, you are birthing a new you, a new level of the self inside you, because you're serving in this capacity. So this is not only is this picture non-linear, but the loom consideration allows you to say, well, so what would be the personal perspective inside the cosmic, inside the human, inside the planetary, and equally, what would be the cosmic perspective inside the personal, inside the planetary, inside the human, and you get different configurations, and that's part of the contemplative practice of loom work that we are using here to expand the horizontal, the vertical, and the depth vectors, the three vectors of the contemplation, which brings me to this fifth consideration, which perhaps for me is where in terms of feelings and passion, that's where it gets most biting and most potent. Because there isn't a day without me in deep contemplation about the unborn. And I personalize it for myself. I think about the next generations, and I'm quite specific in the way I practice this. And there is a daily practice and attunement that is always inclusive. So this is not just the idea of having learned what the council of the mothers, the council of the women in the Iroquois nation used to do. It's truly recognizing that at this stage, when everything is so short term, we live now in technology cycles of days and hours and so on, and so much of the preoccupation of human life is this minute, who tweeted what in the last second. No, I take time every day to make myself available to hear the voice of the unborn, our grandchildren and our grandchildren and beyond. And when I do so, what I am experiencing is that they are cheering us on, they are cheering me on to be stronger, to be the better version of myself, to not give in to lesser persuasions. They ask of me to be the more of human that I can be today. So I find that there is a personal dimension when I surrender myself to the future perspective. And when I truly try to embody and listen to their desires and their hopes. First of all, can we keep this place alive for God's sake and for their sake, such that they are able to express their creativity and genius and passion? That's a very deep inner prayer contemplation that I hold on a daily basis. And it leads me to want to foster the ecologies that support life and support future life. So what is it we can do today to build into the theater of life the not only the sustainable but the regenerative capacities that will include next generations and will include not just our children and grandchildren, but their grandchildren. So can we live into this awareness and consciousness today? And what would it be like to feel and hear their voices? That would be right there. I'm describing a developmental effort, a developmental task. It's not just I will sit and do nothing. It's I will sit or sometime I will go for a run, and my attention and every part of me that I can get to is centered on this idea. Can I build that ecology in myself to support their life 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations down the line? So that today we liberate their possibilities and expressions. Today we begin to liberate who they can be when they show up here. So not only do we have the responsibility to not destroy everything that is here, that we are the carriers of the legacy of, but that we are actually the midwifery agency of not just of today, but of future generations. That is, for me, the call, the reason to develop. And that's where it gets the deepest and most potent in terms of feelings.
That's a great contemplation, Aviv.
Yeah, what would you... how is this... what is this evoking for you?
It's evoking a contemplation of surrender, actually. When you spoke about the word, inside of what you said, there was surrender and what we surrender to. Because a curious part of development is like developing to the point where we can surrender. Developing, here's a curious thought, our surrender value. Like we need to actually build a value that has surrender value. We can't just say, to the universe, take me as take me as I am, kind of thing. What's our surrender value? What have we actually assembled in ourselves that has value at a personal level? Oh, it's had a value at a personal level, which actually has helped the planetary ecology in some way, has helped the human situation overall in some way, has actually helped move the universe on a little, even by awareness in a certain way, and helped create a viable future, and all of which is to do with creating a surrender value. And a phrase turns up, which is, can we surrender to the sacred? Because mostly what happens is people, in my experience, very often get bashed by life in different ways, which really is to do with the lower vibration systems of life, like the economics of life, the survival, the need to survive. And so get bashed in such a way that the personal perspective is really as far as this loom very often goes, with somewhat that the human perspective becomes looking after my family and maybe giving a bit of something to charity. But it misses the overall loom of potentiality. So I'm thinking this is like a loom of potentiality of development. And what is it we surrender to? Do we surrender to the casino? I see a lot of that around here. Do we surrender to Netflix? Do we surrender to a bank account? Do we surrender to having stocks and shares? Is that where we surrender? Or do we develop to the place where we surrender to the sacred? And that surrendering to the sacred, to me, is absolutely linked up with what you said there about the future perspective. Because if we register, you mentioned earlier about the earth being sacred, the sacred earth, as in that marvelous speech by Chief Seattle, that the earth is sacred. If we recognize that the earth is sacred, then our behaviors will reflect that. We won't be saying the earth is sacred on a Sunday and then treating her badly for the rest of the week. Our behavior will actually demonstrate our love. If we love the planet, it'll be there in our daily demonstration. If we love the children, the grandchildren, if we love the human future, then our behavior will reflect that. Yes. And I'll give one example, which is we tend to say, like here in North America, that our children are the priority, but then we tend to give them the worst food for their school dinners. So they're not really the priority. Otherwise, we'd take the worst food and we'd give them the best food. But, $1 a head per child is not reflecting giving them the best nutrition. Meanwhile, someone who's whatever, higher up an adult higher up the economic scale will be having something much more refined for dinner than the children are getting. So it's having it, the reality of the expression, reflecting that sacred.
So we have developed here a starter loom to really open ways into contemplating the inquiry, why develop yourself? And you are showing that this loom can be used in many other ways. It's, for example, a loom of different levels or different expressions of love. You could literally go through the love through the personal perspective, planetary, human, cosmic, and through the future. Or as an example, last year we conducted a portal experiment with a community, a large community, which we call the essencing of care. And we explored the essence of care in a variety of different ways. And we could take care through this loom. Because in the first perspective, the personal perspective, well, we are developing ourselves to develop new kind of awareness about the kind of self-care that we can exercise. Okay, so as you go through life, you know to take care of yourself, so you won't eat what is not good for you, and when you drive, you drive in the right side of the road rather than the wrong side of the road because you don't want to kill yourself. So these are obvious levels of self-care, but over time, as you develop, you cultivate more refined, more sensitive dimensions of self-care. Self-care to your body, to your various higher faculties and higher capabilities, and to how you treat yourself as a living being. And then you bring care to, as we said, to the planetary ecology. And what are the different ways? And you said, by all means, practice activism in the global or the local or regional way, because that's a way to express your passion. By all means, do so. Can we nevertheless at the same time recognize that it begins with where we place our own attention and consciousness and how we process life? Because yes, there is climate change in the planet, but part of the climate change in the planet is an expression of the climate change in the human. And can we take responsibility for our own inner climate in the way we choose to manage and regulate our own energies? And is that a place to begin to help the planetary perspective in terms of our development? So that brings the whole space of self-regulation and self-management and managing of emotions and feelings, both for your own sake, for the planetary sake, and in terms of the care you exercise for the species. And so then you can continue and unfold this consideration of care through what is the way to exercise care at a species, in the species-wide sense, for humanity at large. What is a way to embrace the human, the broader human case? How would I, as a developing human, how would I bring this consideration into my consciousness? For example, at some stage on the journey, you may shut out the news because you can't handle the news and you are trying to take care of yourself. And then there may be a point along the journey of your development work where you say, no, actually part of my work now is to take in the news, as horrific and as hard as they are, and do some of my development work and some of my compassion and care work by embracing the news and embracing the most devastating situations anywhere in the world and bringing those inside the ecology of awareness that I choose to live as a conscious being in the interior work that I do. That may be a human and a cosmic perspective and a way of exercising care, let alone bringing into it again the way to exercise care on behalf of future generations, which for me is truly my logotherapy, to bring Viktor Frankl into the equation, in terms of if at any point in time in the day I feel unsure or confused, I can always, in my mind, look to future generations, begin to look to my granddaughter, and then look to her grandchildren and consider, well, through their eyes, what would be the right thing to do? And it's extraordinary how clarifying that is. It's so very clarifying. All of a sudden, there is no confusion. What would make them proud when they see me in that moment in time, when nobody else sees me, but they do in my imaginary eye? And that is very clarifying for me about what's right for me to do.
That's a great practice. And it strikes me, it's a very unusual practice in that there's a great deal spoken in the world about one's one's ancestors looking at the person. And so reflecting back to the ancestors. There isn't so much, we don't even have a word hardly.
Forecestors.
Yeah, exactly. Forecestors. You know, that's like precestors, ancestors yet to come. That to have the perspective looking the other way. We're so conditioned to be living from the past to now. And then we think about living from now to the future, but it's unusual to be going to the future and have the future looking at us now. That's a mental, emotional faculty it's not so worked. If it was, the United Nations might have some kind of a chance of doing something in the present, but it's always been governed by what's happened in the past, or being in the now, projecting into the future. But that's very different than the future coming as an active property into the now. Yeah.
So one of the elements we are bringing to focus in this inquiry of why develop yourself is you develop yourself to expand your perspective, from the personal to the planetary, to the human, to the cosmic, to the future, and be inclusive of those perspectives. And when we do so, we truly are evolving who we see ourselves to be. So when you follow that reasoning, you'd say, well, so we are developing ourselves to realize who we truly are. Because when you follow that logic, who we are and who next generations are to be, these are not separable domains. They are connected domains. It's just that we are not in the mundane pedestrian way of going about life and worrying about, as you said, the paycheck that you need to worry often because of the economic conditions and so on and so forth. You won't have necessarily the space to be inclusive of those future generations or of the cosmos at large. But when we can bring these considerations in, it changes our perspective about who we are. So then I'd propose that one way to contemplate why develop yourself, well, to realize who you truly are. And to relax into the discovery of realizing who you are as you are human, as you are becoming the greater human you can be. That's another way of appreciating why develop yourself.
Yes, yes.
And inside it brings me full circle to, so why develop? Because it creates meaning, because it creates joy, it regenerates and it creates a certain rejuvenation on the inside. It evokes and emancipates love and beauty and extraordinary expressions that would never come to light without us engaging with development. So development is exhilarating thing. Development is exhilaration. It is a way of joining the creative act, and it's a way of the universe and the essence of reality expressing itself through us, learning about itself through us. So in other words, when we develop, the universe gets to know about a part of itself that it would never come to know without us engaging with the practice and the exercise of developing ourselves. All that is part of why develop yourself.
Nice. Yes. And we were born for it. I'm thinking we were born for it. You know, he says that, oh, that musician, they were born for it, or that person doing hurdle jumping, they were born for it. We were born to develop. Yes, we were born for it because that's our design. We're designed for development. We're designed to develop. We were born for it. So why not love it? And that would mean applying ourselves into it. So where we start to find a bit of not the solution, but opening up further the application conundrum. What do we apply ourselves to? Well, it would seem applying ourselves to what we were born for would be a good idea. And if we're born for development, applying ourselves to development would seem like a pretty good way to go as a human life.
And if indeed we were born for it, David, as you say, so then the imagery is not one of development is pushing that rock up the mountain. It's not that. It's actually unfolding what is already latent there and perhaps living into the revelatory teleology of life is what we call development. For us, it appears as development, but it's already there, preceded, precoded by potential. And for us, the development work is the revelation of what is in the realms of potential. And if we embrace it in the idea in this way, it suggests that perhaps development is the incantation of tomorrow and how that future reveals itself through our living process, and that to develop is to emancipate all that awaits us, universally speaking.
So to emancipate and liberate what's already there. It just struck me as the parallel with organic life. We don't see it. We don't need to coach a daffodil. It's already it's ready to bloom. It's already built in. So possibly intrinsic in a person is their natural genius. Maybe they have a natural inclination which we're inclined to develop in a particular direction, and it's already there. That word educare, education, is to bring out what's already there. It wasn't about cramming stuff in, it's not pushing stuff into some reluctant brain. It's actually having the natural genie come out of the bottle. The genius is that genie coming out and appearing, and that's not a stress or a strain. It has its struggle aspect, but it's to be a joy as well.
And where in the case of the daffodil and the tulip, it is automatic, in the human case, the blooming does involve self-electing, opting in to co-emerge, to partner the revelatory nature of life. So we're talking some big ideas here today on the why develop yourself, but I think we said right at the beginning that we're getting into the crux of the matter. So
maybe your loom work is actually bloom work.
Right, now that's a novel idea. There you go. So from loom work to bloom work, right?
Yeah, bringing things to bloom. Yeah.
Well, how about if we leave it there, suspended, unfinished, more as many starters? Because what current openings are, they are more than anything an offering of many starter contemplations for you to come along for the ride, and then to curate and create your own journeys, your own currents and openings in whatever it is you choose to do.
Beautiful. Thanks, Aviv. I look forward to meeting you in the next installment.
Thank you, David.
All right then. Bye for now.
Along with our website at portalsofperception.org, Portals is also available on YouTube and on all podcast platforms, as well as social media. You can become an active member and join the conversation in community events. And you can help us get the word out by liking this content and by sharing it with your friends.